and welcome back to Liberty Dispatch, where we bring you Canadian news and analysis from a uniquely and distinctly Christian perspective. If you like what we do, you know what to do, and I would suggest that you go over to ldcanada.substack.com and become a paid subscriber right this instant, because that's how you get all our stuff. Whatever we're putting out, we have some amazing long form interviews that are coming out that you're not going to want to miss, and they're not going to be for everybody, but just our faithful paid subscribers, which I see, Andrew, is more and more people by the day, which is very exciting. It helps us keep the lights on and continue to bring very unique news and analysis from a different perspective that you will not hear anywhere else. And I know, Andrew, today will be a perfect example of just that. Yep. But we are here outside of our normal weekly episode because of the massive news of the tariffs coming down on Canada and Mexico from Donald Trump and the United States of America. As of recording, today is March 4. Today was the day, it's day 0, where these tariffs took effect, and it created massive consternation. And we wanted to react to each and every political leader as they reacted to the big news of the day that took over all the headlines. And we thought, well, what a perfect opportunity to come to our listeners, give our perspective, which we know you cannot get anywhere else. Andrew, great to see you. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Today was an interesting day as I was watching social media erupt, and then I started to watch the press conferences of the three main federal political party leaders. I was struck by and really just reinforced in my mind that Canadian politics is the WWF. And ultimately, they're all kind of on the same team. They're just playing a different role for all of us to get excited about it. But what today felt like to me was watching these politicians come out from backstage, walk down the ramp into the ring to their theme music and cutting their promos, which for those of you that don't know, wrestling lingo, a promo is basically where a wrestler, grabs a microphone and just talks. They'll smack talk the opponents, or they will just kind of go off and get the crowd all jacked up. And so that's what today was for me. Today was watching these political party leaders cutting promos, reading from a script, kind of flexing on the enemy. In this case, it's Donald Trump, and making sure that they get their fans all riled up. So we wanted to look at three, not the whole things, and we spare you the French portion, but we wanted to look at three kind of edited videos of Justin Trudeau, Pierre, Poilievre, and Jagmeet Singh. And so just so you can, I want our audience to enter into my mind for a minute. It's a dangerous place to traverse.
It's a very dangerous place.
But I will say that when you watch these videos we put together, you'll realize this is what I saw. This is what existed in my mind's eye and in my brain when I was watching these press conferences. This is the idea that came to my head. So I hope you look forward to these promos that are cut. And Matt and I are going to kind of give some commentary. So we'll be doing picture in picture, and periodically we're going to pause the video and offer a little bit of insight, because what you're also going to see with these promos is it is a lot of bravado, a lot of double speak, a lot of assuming that Canadians are stupid, that we don't have brains, and that we can't rewind just a couple weeks ago or a couple years ago, thinking that we are completely asleep and oblivious to what's going on. And they're going to try to play at our emotions. You're going to see a lot of similar language. So I'll say this at the front. You'll see a lot of similar language to the kind of rhetoric that came out shortly leading up to and in the throes of the COVID era, which is concerning, but you're going to see some of that language as well. And we just wanted to give comments. So we wanted to help all of you understand, what do we think about this, the tariffs in general, but the response from our political leaders, and how to make sense of it. So we're going to start in order with the main heel, and then we're going to look at the anti-hero / baby face.
And then the jobber.
Then we're going to look
a jobber.
Well, he is, but in this case, he's another big guy, but he's not the main guy right now. And so you'll see the roles that they play. So without further ado, here is Triple H, Justin Trudeau.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game.
So the crowd is all like, woo! So they're tension, the arena. And I was going to come out of the stage, down the ramp, and the crowd, woo! There's the crew, there's the whole crew with
He
him.
is definitely...
Here we go.
Triple H.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense.
Pause for a sec here. I would just like everyone to remember that Justin Trudeau has said that he admires the basic dictatorship of China because of how quick they can turn their economy on a dime. And I can tell you unequivocally, Communist China has been responsible under its current leadership for the deaths of more people, primarily political opponents and Christians and Muslims, than Vladimir Putin and maybe any other country in Europe and Asia combined. By the way, Justin Trudeau believes that terrorists who murder American soldiers should be given $10 million settlements because we were mean to them at Guantanamo Bay. So make that make sense, Justin.
Make that make sense. Make that make sense. And come on, that's not, it's also just a lie, right? It's just, I know it's helpful for you to frame it like this, Justin, but trying to create a diplomatic solution to stop a stalemated war that's killing hundreds and thousands of men, both in Russia and Ukraine, and dispossessing and displacing so many people, and, frankly, killing women and children in the collateral damage, trying to come to a diplomatic solution to end that war is not cozying up to Russia. Just not pumping your chest and saying a lot of empty words and calling Vladimir Putin a meanie, that does not equate to them being best friends. I know you're a drama teacher, and you and your histrionics, you tend to think that's more real than actually doing diplomacy. But some people live in the real world, Justin. So the way he even frames this question, it's just Russia hoax all over again. And
didn't Trudeau's dad murder more political opponents than Vladimir Putin did anyways?
Yes, Castro, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think, it's definitely a way to frame it. We'll see if it has any good effect.
Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning.
This is a fight we can't win, by the way.
And so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
Pause for a sec.
Starting with tariffs.
But he has to he has to account for the exchange rate. So 25% American tariff is really like we should be imposing like a 13% tariff because our dollar is worthless. And by the way, part of the reason why we're in the mess that we're in is because of failed economic policies like this one. So thank you, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure I would be, I mean, those are big numbers, right? That he's talking about, but I wouldn't be surprised. I don't have the numbers before me right now. If the actual numbers in the Americans' case is 10x what Canada is putting tariffs on, right? Like that would be probably the lowest amount. We do so much business. We send so much of our exports to the United States of America. And I think it's just thou doth protest too much, right? We've seen this from these politicians. You can't really have your cake and eat it too. You can't pump your chest, we're going to win this war, while at the same time saying this is going to totally destroy our country, which I think they've articulated more than once. So anyways, let's continue.
On $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Today, we will also be challenging these illegal actions by filing dispute resolution claims at the World Trade Organization and through the USMCA. But in the meantime, our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. tariffs are withdrawn, and not a moment sooner.
Pause for a sec.
And should these tariffs not cease?
Hey, Justin, isn't it really terrible when a bigger government does something illegal against you? Isn't that really a terrible thing when they break laws or make up their own laws in order to extract economic wealth from you and compliance? Yeah, that's a terrible thing, isn't it? Is he looking in a mirror right now? Like, he's not talking to Trump, right? He's looking in a mirror. That's what's on the other side of the camera, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it sucks when you're a bully on the playground and then a bigger bully comes along. And
when you're the grade 6 bully, and then you enter into middle school, and now the grade 9 bully comes along. Yeah, that's a terrible thing.
You're getting noogies and wedgies and you swirlies, and you're getting thrown in the lockers now because you're the dweeb that's getting picked on. Yeah, I mean, it's a wild time, man. And I love, immediately the appeal. Oh, we're going to talk to the World Trade Federation. Okay. Okay. We'll see it. We'll see what that does. It's not going to do anything. But that's his knee jerk reaction, right? He's a globalist through and through. So it's like, oh, let's appeal to some sort of national, international group so they can say that Donald Trump's is a mean. Klaus,
come and save me, Klaus, please.
Come to my aid, Klaus.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, we forgot to give people adequate warning, because this will be a little more Justin Trudeau than you're used to. So now it's not our normal schedule, so we probably have to be even more careful, because you might think, oh, this is a special thing, I'll drive. Please, right now, if you're still alive and you haven't crashed from listening to his seizure-inducing voice,
yes,
please pull over, call your loved ones, tell them you love them, and put a helmet on and buckle up. Let's keep going.
We still got like 10 minutes more of this.
We are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures which will demonstrate that there are no winners in a trade war. Now, just like I did a month ago, I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you.
Pause for a sec.
Yeah, this is a massive incongruity.
I remember when a group of truckers and protesters showed up on Parliament Hill saying to every single one of our MPs, we want to meet and talk with you about this, because these mandates are hurting all of us.
Yeah.
They're hurting all Canadians. We're all being hurt by this, and this is bad for our country. So we want to meet with you and talk. And I remember at that time that Trudeau said, well, he flew to BC and had in his bunker, oh, I have COVID, I'm sick. And not a single MP. So again, I will say it is quite the pity when someone with all of the power and the ability to harm you in many ways, including economically, apparently doesn't want to talk about it. Yeah, that sucks, doesn't it? That really sucks.
Well, there's a massive incongruency here, right? Because when he addresses the United States of America and their citizenry, what is he saying? Well, the prices are going to go up on you. You're going to bear the burden of these tariffs. And that is actually right. Tariffs are a tax on imports. Therefore, it is the consumer that's buying those goods within the import nation that is going to feel the added price increase because of these taxes. That is true. But the massive incongruency, Andrew, is what does that say about the Canadian response? Is the Canadian is putting massive tariffs as a retaliation on American goods? Is that hurting Donald Trump and American businesses? Or is it most likely hurting the Canadian consumer? And in this case, because of the massive businesses we're talking about in the United States, these global businesses, there's no way the Americans cutting themselves off from a Canadian economy is far easier than us cutting ourselves off from an American economy.
Completely.
So these retaliatory tariffs are going to hurt us. So that's where this incongruency is just like a flashing red light going off in my mind anyway. Let's continue.
As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country.
Inflation is not price inflation. Inflation is the expansion of money and credit in a society. Prices are going to go up because there's another added tax on it. This is not what inflation is, you dumb man.
Yeah. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk, at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both.
Pause for a sec. What he doesn't realize is that these tariffs will actually drive more businesses to the United States to produce and manufacture their own stuff, which will create more jobs.
Yeah, and that's
I think in the long run, this would be better, and it works for the United States because they're so massive and they produce so much. And the United States can afford to have the tariffs, but we're not the same as them because we take a lot of stuff from them.
Yeah,
we were talking about this at the dinner table with my kids. I was explaining to my kids tonight at dinner what the deal behind the tariffs is and why we end up losing. So I was sitting at the table. I'm like, okay, kids, let's look around our kitchen for a second. See that Frank's Red Hot sauce on the table? See that Caesar dressing? You see that Brita water filter? Look at our fridge. Look at our stove. Look at our microwave. Look at the van outside the window. Look at our furniture. Look at our TV. You know where this all came from? A lot of this came from the United States, and how much of this was made in Canada? Very little. And I said, so that's what's going to happen, kids. What's going to happen is we will end up paying more because I'm going to go to the grocery store and all of a sudden Frank's Red Hot sauce will be $12.50 instead of $10. Like, whoa.
And it's something that people need to understand is the incongruency between America's ability to massively generate production and manufacturing in comparison to Canada. The same the same type of project in America takes them about roughly 2 to 3 years that it would take Canadians 10 years to build because of the massive amount of red tape and bureaucracy that stands in between Canadian businesses and producers and the ability to manufacture these things. So unless if Trudeau and his regime and Carney or whoever ends up taking over or Poilievre, unless if they're going to massively reduce taxes, trade barriers, regulations in Canada, the Americans are going to so far outpace what we can do that their any short-term potential hurt that they're going to experience will be able to be made up for a lot quicker than we can react to it. I was just in Arizona, Andrew, and like you look at Phoenix, and we're like in Goodyear, where my in-laws are, 45 minutes outside of Greater Phoenix area. Well, I guess it's a part of the Greater Phoenix area, but like Phoenix proper, I should say. And all there's just massive warehouses that are created that they're empty. They're just waiting for chip manufacturers, all these big time businesses to come in. And so, I mean, that's just one, example that, on the ground. But I have no doubt that Trump's calculation is short-term pain for long-term gain, because what we've talked about is he wants to bring manufacturing back to the United States of America, and that is where these tariffs serve that purpose. Mm-hmm. And we've already seen it, right? He just announced yesterday, before these tariffs came on, that the Taiwanese are moving massive amounts, like almost about a half of their sophisticated microchip production. They're onshoring it in the United States of America. So that's a massive win already for this. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security, impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States
that is a big one. Potash is a big one.
To grow and prosper. They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American
Pause for a sec, though. I want to pause for a sec.
Absolutely.
I'm well connected with several farmers who own fairly large operations, and even here, Trudeau grossly overestimates what Canada can do. 80 to 90% of all of the fertilizer that Canadian farmers use, you know where it comes from, Matt? We don't make it.
I'm not 100% sure.
Russia.
Yeah, well, okay, that wouldn't surprise me. I'm sure I'm sure in the twisted web that we weave, we probably send a bunch of potash to Russia.
So, but the point is twofold. The point is twofold. One, we depend on Russia, and two, we're not able to make enough for ourselves. We have to get 80 to 90% of all the fertilizer we use in Canada that farmers use comes from Russia. So this idea of we're such a big supplier for the states, they need us, is just not true. It's just not true.
Yeah, well, and I think that's funny because you bring up Russia, and this is another incongruency here, right? He talks a big game right off the bat. He's cozying up to Russia, and meanwhile, what's actually gone down in Europe is all the economic sanctions and stuff that they've placed on Russia have been overcome by the fact that while they're trying to put a public face and a public posture in Europe, that they're totally anti-Putin, totally anti-Russian, they're still buying mass amounts of Russian energy. that really basically overcomes, or at least cancels out, much of the economic punishment that they tried to put on Russia. So it just goes to show you that's Justin Trudeau, right? He's the opposite of good foreign policy, which is speak in soft voices and carry a big stick. He carries a big stick, but the stick is hollow, and he's afraid to use it. So
they've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. And they've chosen to undermine the incredible work we've done together to tackle the scourge that is fentanyl, a drug that must be wiped from the face of the earth.
Yeah, amazing things happened
So
in that
on
30
that
days.
point, let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no justification or need whatsoever for these tariffs today.
Pause for a sec.
That's
Yeah,
not
we
true.
know that. We know that's not true. It just even if we recognize what Sam Cooper's been saying. So Trudeau's going to go on to talk about the fentanyl straw man, and the reality is, if the very small, even if it is a small fentanyl export from Canada, we've already discussed that it's actually irrelevant, because if all Canada does is import the precursor and then sends it all to Mexico where it comes into the States, then it's irrelevant to say that only, a certain percentage of fentanyl comes from Canada to the United States, because it comes to us and then it's manufactured and then it's sent to Mexico where it goes in. So number one, that's a
And the money
that's a
gets
straw
cleaned
man.
here,
And
right? The
that's the
money's
second
getting
issue.
cleaned
That's the
in
second
Vancouver.
issue. The second
Yeah.
issue is the laundering and the connection with the Communist Chinese Party, and how they are benefiting from using Canada as a money launderer. So those are the issues. The issues are that we are in cahoots with the CCP, and also, just because the fentanyl doesn't come directly from Canada to the States, if it goes from Canada to Mexico to the States, still the same problem.
Yeah, and he's even the way that he presents some of those facts, as we'll hear him say, they're skewed facts, because he's going to present it in 1% of illegal immigration and fentanyl. Yeah, well, Mexico's a total disaster. The southern border is a total disaster. Like 1% of that stuff getting over from Canada is still massive amounts, right? We're still talking about a lot, and that's beside all the other things that we're talking about. And then we've already talked about another justification. What? Donald Trump taking short-term pain to onshore American investment and manufacturing in the United States of America. So that's like three reasons that we.
Well, and there's another one: no
off.
longer subsidizing Canada to the tune of, what was the number he was saying? 200 million, 200 billion, or something like that.
I don't really understand why trade surpluses are like. I think that's really overblown, and I don't really agree with him there. But nevertheless,
it's a reason.
I mean,
it's a reason he's come up with.
We've listed four. It took us like under 5 minutes to list four justifications. Like, the thing is, you can just say that there's no justifications, but the honest thing would be like, we don't agree with what he's doing. Not that there is no justification, but this is the type of rhetoric that they use, right? Russia's unprovoked attack. Never mind NATO inching closer and closer to Russia for decades at a time, right? No. We have to say this because this is part of the propaganda, part of the rhetoric that we have to perform.
Now, the legal pretext your government is using to bring in these tariffs is that Canada is apparently unwilling to help in the fight against illegal fentanyl.
That's true.
Well, that
until
is
he smashed
totally
you with a hammer.
False. Let's look at the facts. Our border is already safe and secure.
No.
Far less than 1% of fentanyl flows and less than 1% of illegal crossings into the United States comes from Canada.
Like we said, that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Because we know we can always do better. We responded to concerns, including from the president, by implementing an ambitious $1.3 billion border plan.
Andrew, what color is the sky in Justin Trudeau's world? Like, he has such a Pollyannish view of himself, right? Like, he thinks he can do no wrong, and he always speaks as though he can do no wrong. But meanwhile, his approval rating is like 20%. Everybody hates them.
He do wrong. He do bad wrong.
But he's constantly gaslighting and constantly speaking as though we can do maybe a little bit better on the border, but we're doing really well, but we can maybe do a little bit better. It's just, nobody believes you, bro.
Yeah.
Plan that includes generational investments in new AI and imaging tools to stop the flow of fentanyl in its tracks, stronger coordination and information sharing with American agencies, along with the deployment of drones, helicopters, and additional personnel to keep our border secure.
Can you pause it again? We have to make this point clear.
We're never going to get through these videos.
It doesn't, just really quick though, it
Yes.
doesn't matter if the fentanyl does not go directly from Canada to the United States. If the precursors come into Canada and then they go from Canada to Mexico with the express purpose of their end destination being the United States, it doesn't matter. These numbers mean nothing.
Yeah.
We are just because we're not step 2 in the 3-step process, we're still step 1, which means we are a part of the process, and you can't get around that.
No, exactly. Yeah. And this is the disingenuous facts that he's bringing forward.
A month ago, as part of an agreement with the United States that paused the tariffs, we made further commitments. We appointed Kevin Brasseau as our fentanyl czar, a man who dedicated his multi-decade career in law enforcement to combating organized crime networks and drug trafficking. We designated 7
probably
drug
also
cartels,
stomping on protesters during the convoy as well.
Who cynically profit off
probably
the
a
pain
lower
and
end
suffering
lead.
of people on both sides of the border as the terrorist organizations that they are.
Pause.
And just yesterday, we launched a new...
Why wouldn't he recognize that before Trump threatened tariffs? Just a question. If he's saying now definitively, oh, we've labeled them the terrorist organizations they are, why haven't you up until this point? Why now? Anyways, just a question.
Joint
Continue.
operations partnership supported by a $200 million investment between Canada's security and law enforcement agencies, a partnership that will enhance the coordination of information and intelligence in order to thwart criminal gangs involved in the illegal fentanyl trade. And critically, our actions are working. As the U.S. Customs and Border Protection just acknowledged, there was a 97% drop in fentanyl seizures from January compared to December, to a near zero low of less than half an ounce seized.
Can you pause it again?
Sounds like the tariff threats that led to the border deal were a good idea.
I want to ask a question. If I try to break into your front door and then you put additional security measures so I can't come in the front door, but then I sneak around and break in the back door, have I not still gotten in the house? So does it really matter that the front door is secure? Does it really matter if Canada does whatever it's said it's done if the fentanyl still ends up in the United States because we send it to Mexico? Like, I have to keep repeating this point so people understand this is all gobbledygook. This is doublespeak.
Well, it should be noted too that the border security has much to do with Trump's approach to the border as well, right? He's the one who used the stick to hit Canada and Mexico in February and, get them to shore things up to a better degree. And he's the one who, just in his posture and the appointment of Homan and the entire methodology in immigration has, I think the numbers came out today, and it was something like there was like a low in 1 week of 800 apprehensions at the border. We were talking about at highs of 20 upwards of 50,000, a week or a day or something like that. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head when Biden was in. And now we're talking about less than 1,000 people a week because of this. So I doubt that much of this is due to Trudeau and their policies that just took. I mean, I knowing government bureaucracy, I'm doubtful that they were able to get anything up and running in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
Even with all the further enforcements and actions we've taken at the borders. In sum, we stepped up We engaged closely and constructively with the President and his administration. We did everything we promised. We stuck to our word. And we did it because we believe in working together
Pause.
to protect.
You mean like all those Canadians that did everything you told them to? They stayed home for 2 weeks and then 2 months, and they wore the masks and they socially
2 years.
distanced and they didn't go see their loved ones and they let their old relatives die and they took 1 shot and then 2 shots. And then you still said to them, but you need a 3rd shot and a 4th shot, or we won't let you in the country, or you won't be able to fly on planes, or you can't
fire
see
you
your
from
loved
your
ones.
job.
It's amazing how, again, when the more powerful entity, according to you, moves the goalposts, even though you feel like you've done everything in your power, right? Now in the case of Trudeau, he's lying. That's not what's happening here. Yeah, that's not what's actually happening here. But what he's espousing is exactly what he and his government did to Canadians, and he had no problem doing it. So
he loved it. He relished it.
This Justin Trudeau, after this press conference, has officially crowned himself the greatest hypocrite in the history of state officials. He is now the king hypocrite of the universe after this.
Our citizens. Now I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald.
Pause for a second.
Over 8.
That's because he won't answer your phone calls, you goof. That's why you got to speak to him here. He doesn't want to talk to you. The same way you don't want to talk to Canadians. Remember that?
And laughs. Yeah, I know. It's he can hardly keep it together. He practices in the shower though. Let's go.
Years, you and I have worked together.
No,
we've done.
He hates you.
Big things.
You're a dweeb.
We signed a historic deal that has
Pause for a second. You mean he threatened you with his position and bent you in Mexico over the barrel, and you had no choice but to sign the deal? Let's not revise history. Mm-hmm. What happened is you realized that you were the puppy dog and he was the big dog in the field, and you had to do what he said, otherwise you would suffer. That's what went down.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage. As
no, he hates
Canada
you, and you're a
US
jerk
have done
to him.
Together for decades, for generations. And now
he literally anybody he tries to smear politically, he's said they're a mega person. So, I mean, do you think Donald Trump doesn't know that, Justin?
Yeah.
Now, we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world.
That you helped create because you're an idiot.
It's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Does he think Donald Trump's smart all of a sudden? I thought liberals thought he was an idiot, but they can't really make up their mind, right? Is he a malevolent genius, or is he a knuckle-dragging imbecile? They can't make up their mind, but he's trying to flatter him. Flattery is a sin, you dork.
We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see. And now, to my fellow Canadians, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use every tool at our disposal so Canadian workers and businesses can weather this storm. From expanding EI benefits and making them more flexible to providing direct supports to businesses, we will be there as needed to help.
Pause. Hold on a second, Matt. This is really important.
No.
This is the exact same kind of language employed during the COVID era. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We're going to use all the tools available to us. We will help make sure that businesses are okay. We will expand EI, and we will make sure to take care of you economically.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of a trade war, which we all know, wars are the reasons why you invoke the War Measures Act.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is all the same stuff. All the same stuff.
Carney has already talked openly about coming in, being the new leader of the Liberals, being the new president or prime minister, I should say, of Canada, and potentially invoking an emergency act immediately, which would then give him the power to delay the election, because that's a provisional part of the emergency act during special times. I mean, what has it done in the Ukraine? Well, when you're at war, you've got to declare martial law. What can't you do while you're under martial law? We'll have free and fair elections.
No elections.
So I'm not saying it's certain that that's going to be the end, but these are the certain threads that we've pulled at a lot for the last 4 years, and we've been unfortunately
we're not prophets.
It's almost always the worst case scenario. Like,
we're not prophets, but what
true.
this feels like to me. This feels like Justin Trudeau putting his hand in the water and trying to gauge the temperature of Canadians.
Yeah.
How will they respond to this? Will Canadians respond, and will polling show Canadians saying, whatever you need to do to save us from economic destruction and the new enemy? So it's not COVID, it's not climate, it's now Orange Man.
Yeah.
So whatever you need to do to save us, do it. We will comply. This is a test. He's testing the water. How are they going to respond? And here's what Trudeau knows. At least in Ontario, when our premier said, we're going to go tariff for tariff, we're going to spend a ton of money, and we're going to basically be Marxist to save Ontario from the big bad, the United States. How did Ontario reward him? With another majority government and 80 seats in provincial parliament. So Trudeau knows that, at least in Ontario, they're willing to elect the person who has devastated them, but who promises to keep them safe from the big baddie. Well, so that's what he's doing here.
I just want to make a point that he talked about tariffs leading to inflation. No, they're just a tax. That's why the price goes up. It's not inflation. The things that do create inflation is massive government spending and printing of money. It's the expansion of money and credit in a system. And that's what he's talking about. So he's literally talking about inflation's not under control. It's never come down. We're still out of control. Interest rates
Bank of Canada is still dropping. Low. And they're still dropping it. The Bank of Canada is still dropping
because
the interest
they're
rate.
idiots. They're idiots, and they're the stupidest people in the world. And now he's going to blow a bunch of money back into the economy to fight this trade war. The cure will be worse than the disease.
Wait a minute.
And we've already seen this. We've already seen this.
Hasn't that happened? Oh, yeah. Every single COVID measure, every single
one.
Was
and
worse.
This is
worse.
And this is what Canadians are blindly saying, sign me up for. That's crazy. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, here's what we're going to see too. You're going to see the same kind of language from Poilievre. So remember, I'm going to put the stake in the ground here. And if this isn't the case, then I'll admit I'm wrong, and don't stone me a la Deuteronomy 18. But if Pierre Poilievre follows through with what he's saying, which is almost identical to what Justin Trudeau is saying, it will collapse Canada. Our economy will be devastated by it. And that will have the kind of consequences that will be catastrophic, right? It's not just about money, because loss of jobs and poverty equals death, equals abuse, equals chaos, equals social upheaval. So even if Poilievre wins, If he follows through with what he's saying, the results for Canada will be devastating, in which case I would have been right when I said a vote for the Conservatives just as bad for Canada as the Liberals. Maybe not because he's going to push all the LGBTQ craziness, but if he goes through with this alone, this will have devastating impacts on Canada. And it might take us a long time
Andrew,
to recover.
46 minutes into the episode, we have
I know, but this is the one we got to talk about. Let's go.
It's the big one.
But Canada, make no mistake, no matter how long this lasts, no matter what the cost, the federal government and other orders of government will be there for you.
There it is.
Those are the most dangerous words ever spoken in the human language.
Whether it's 2 weeks or 2 years. Yeah, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 years, we will do whatever we need to do and spend however much money we need to save every single Canadian life and job. It's exactly
we're doomed.
Alex Klusman has pointed this out on Facebook today. He was like hitting home runs today.
We're doomed.
It's if people like my antenna are on fire, because what I'm hearing is the exact same thing I heard 4 and 5 years ago. And you're just replacing, just you've taken COVID out and now you've put Trump here. And this should make Canadians we should be very unsettled by this.
It's the same playbook.
And the fact that we're not means we haven't learned our lesson, which means, and I hate to say this, we deserve whatever's coming for us. If we have not learned the lesson of the last 5 years and we continue to vote in and support these evil people, then we will get exactly what we deserve. We should have learned our lesson. I don't know if we have yet.
Yeah, I'm less and less confident by the day.
Canadian jobs. We will take measures to prevent predatory behavior that threatens Canadian companies because of the impacts of this trade war, leaving them open to takeovers.
Our white knight.
We will relentlessly fight to protect our economy. We will stand up for Canadians every single second of every single day, because this country
is the guy who
fighting for.
Sewered the Canadian economy.
Now, we've been through tough spots before.
But
every time we've faced long odds and seemingly insurmountable obstacles,
never been worse.
We've not only survived, we've emerged stronger than ever.
That's not true.
Because when it comes to defending our great nation,
that's not true.
There is no price we all aren't willing to pay. And today is no different.
I am the game and I want to play.
Oh, man. What a disaster. Andrew, we're from the government. We're here to help. That's what we saw.
That last bit there.
Oh, we're
there
doomed.
Is no price we're not willing to pay to rule as communists. Thanks. So
okay, what did PP have to say, Andrew? We got to move on.
Yeah, here's the second promo cut. Here's the anti-hero foil but good guy to Justin Trudeau, one stone cold Pierre Poilievre.
This tune slaps.
At 12:01 a.m.,
I love
President
your mean
Trump
mug, Andrew.
Stabbed America's best friend in the back.
Nope. He stabbed us in the front. Like, honestly, he told us, he gave us like full warning.
that. Oh my goodness, he's just as bad as Trudeau. He stabbed us in the back. All right, keep going.
My message to the president is this.
Pause it. You know who stabbed us in the back, Poilievre? You did when the lockdowns came. You did when the jab mandates came. You did when the truckers went to Ottawa.
Bill C4.
You stabbed us in the back. You are our enemy. Yeah. You are our enemy.
When you disqualified real conservatives.
for this guy and his party, you are truly ignorant to what he has supported or he has advanced or he has done nothing about that has only driven Canada into a significantly worse position than it was 5 years ago. You're the enemy that stabbed us in the back, Poilievre. You are.
Canada will fight back. We will defend our people and our economy, and we will put
By
Canada
raising prices
first.
through more
There's
taxation.
no doubt that our economy will suffer. But so will yours, President Trump. In fact, you're already paying the price, with trillions of dollars erased in stock market value over the last month of these threats.
It's
Already
speculative
Americans
value.
are paying higher gas prices. As at midnight, a new American gas tax kicked in on U.S. working class taxpayers and motorists. Your workers will soon start losing jobs they had upgrading Canadian raw materials, which, by the way, you were getting at an incredible and ridiculous bargain. And your businesses will be selling fewer products to your closest neighbor.
Pause for a second.
Begin.
Two things. One, you're going to hear that him and Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh have the same scriptwriter. You'll see that. Slightly different nuances because, again,
They're different characters in the story.
yeah, Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H are different. But
but the WE still employs the same group of writers.
even okay, you're getting our stuff at a ridiculous discount. Like, can you really put a price? Like, let's just be honest here. Can you put a price on the fact that we don't have to worry about invasion because of the free military defense that the United States provides us?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so we're selling their stuff on the cheap. The reason why China and Russia haven't taken us over yet is because of the United States. So you know what? Show a little bit of, like, just a little bit of gratefulness. Like, okay, fine. We do it on the cheap. They protect us for free.
It's an interesting strategy. Just be exact. Again, we saw it with COVID. The conservatives, for the most part, were in lockstep. There was no opposition party. There were no dissident voices when
O'Toole
the emergency happened.
O'Toole was calling for jab mandates.
Exactly.
Poilievre was criticizing Trudeau for not getting as many doses of the jab here.
Yeah, so we're seeing it over again. Like, when will you understand, conservatives, that acting exactly like the NDP and the Liberals when so-called emergencies happen in Canada is not a good strategy? But I mean, I've heard ostensibly Canadian people say Trudeau or Poilievre's killing it. This is the perfect response. It remains to be seen.
While Canadians are slow to anger and quick to forgive, once provoked, we fight back. And we will fight back. Now, I'd like to speak to the millions of Canadians who are anxious today.
Pause for a sec. I remember when a bunch of Canadians fought back against an overreaching tyrannical state that was invading their lives and crushing their charter rights and their freedoms and their privacy and making life difficult for them. And I remember when Canadians did fight back, and they fought back through a peaceful protest, and they fought back by saying, drop the mandates. And where were you then, Poilievre, when Canadians had enough and peacefully fought back by protest? Nowhere. You wouldn't meet with the single trucker convoy organizer. You were nowhere to be found.
Yeah. He was
coward,
probably in polling rooms trying to figure out whether he should wear glasses or not.
Yeah.
Learning that President Trump has attacked our economy, to the auto workers, the forestry workers, the steel and aluminum workers, the mining and energy workers, the truckers, the farmers, to all of you who get out of bed before the sun rises and do the labor of the nation. You are afraid right now, and I understand.
Pause.
I want you.
To all those same workers that had their jobs threatened because people said you need to take an experimental gene therapy injection, were you there for them then? Nope, you were not. You were not.
To know that I will fight for you.
He definitely led from behind.
I will fight for your job.
Yeah, you won't fight for
your
them.
Family.
No, you didn't. You won't.
For your chance at owning and paying off a home, and I will fight for your retirement. And I will fight to put Canada first. Before these tariffs came in this morning, you must have been asking yourself, how could things get any worse? Before these tariffs, you were already suffering. You wondered how you'd pay the rent, or eventually dream of buying a home after housing costs had doubled over the last decade, rising faster than in any other G7 country.
Pause for a second. Your silence and complicity in the mandates and in the lockdowns are a major part of the reason why we are in such economic chaos right now, and you did nothing. In fact, you supported it. So you're to blame as much as anyone else.
And I mean, to be fair, like the some of the plans that they have in store to turn the economy around, I we would welcome those. We would give him credit where credit's due. But again, him and his Conservative Party baptized unbelievably statist, interventionist economic policy that drove inflation and ruined the economy. And they did not act as an opposition voice while these things were happening. So it's hard to take him at his word that there will be real change coming when they seem to react to emergencies the exact same way as wild-eyed Marxist progressives.
Downgraded your diet as food prices have risen 37% faster in Canada than in the United States over the last 5 years.
But we're going to win the tariff war.
You might be one of the 2 million people, a record-breaking number, lined up at food banks, a number that has more than doubled before these tariffs applied. You've likely noticed that your paycheck is not
partially your fault.
The record inflation, as Canada's GDP has grown less and lower than any other G7 country over the last decade. You might have noticed that your company has already been moving jobs to the United States as greedy and self-serving CEOs put their share prices ahead of your job.
Mark Carney actually did that.
$500 billion net has left from Canada.
But it's also not greedy. This is it's a sound. It's a sound economic strategy.
Hold on a second. Let's just be clear. Who is Pierre Poilievre's second in command, Matt? Who's his number one?
Oh, geez. Lanceman.
Right. What was Melissa Lanceman doing?
Wasn't she a lobbyist for Walmart? Or like...
So wasn't she, as a former lobbyist for Walmart, in the war room with Doug Ford, convincing the province of Ontario that they needed to shut down all businesses, all mom and pop shops, but only keep the big box stores open? So wasn't your second in command making decisions to benefit wealthy multi-conglomerate business owners at the expense of Canadians and their jobs? That's your second in command. You flaming hypocrite. You are a despicable person, because everything you are criticizing, that's exactly the people you have surrounded yourself with. That's exactly what they did to Ontarians and Canadians during the pandemic. The exact thing you're criticizing now. Like, I really hope less and less people fall for the shtick, but that's exactly what his number two did. Is benefited the wealthy multinational organization owners and elites at the expense of the everyday Canadian who own the convenience store or the grocery store or the general store or the small tool store. They all suffered because Poilievre's number two lobbied for them.
I just want to point out again, if what he's saying is true here, Donald Trump is getting what he wants from these tariffs. Just point blank. Like, he's winning. If what he's saying here is true, right here, Donald Trump is winning. There's your justification. End of discussion.
To Trump's America under the current Liberal government. And now this. But I'm here with a message of hope. We will overcome this attack on our economy. And I have a plan to do it. First, we must retaliate, targeting American goods in the following order. A, goods that we can make ourselves. B, goods we don't need. And C, goods we can get from elsewhere. Second, counter tariffs must not be a cash cow for the government. Almost every penny of the tariffs collected should go to tax cuts, with a small sum set aside for targeted relief to workers hardest hit by the trade war.
Just get rid of all the taxes.
None of the money should go to new government spending programs. We must not allow politicians to dishonestly use this crisis to once again launch a debt-fueled, money-printing spending spree that will drive up inflation and further destroy the working class.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Right.
If
okay.
you can be
now,
trusted,
why hasn't he openly criticized Doug Ford for doing just that?
Yeah. No, exactly.
Why hasn't he criticized Doug Ford, who said that's exactly what he's going to do?
Yeah.
What he's going to do is he's going to not only meet the tariffs dollar for dollar, but also increase spending with a gigantic multi-billion-dollar plan to help us out through this. So just criticize your own, Pierre. Why can't you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Hit the poorest people the hardest. Third, we must immediately pass a bring-it-home tax cut on work, investment, energy, and home building. The idea is to neutralize...
Get rid of all property taxes, get rid of all GST on homes, get rid of the income tax. If Donald could do that for us, that would be awesome. I would welcome these tariffs.
The cost of the tariffs with lower taxes and incentivize massive new investment in building stuff here in this country. The obvious place to start is to get rid of the liberal carbon tax, then axe the sales tax on new homes. We need to
not just new homes, all homes.
First, the liberal capital gains tax hike and slash income tax so that hard work pays off and you bring home more of each dollar you earn. Fourth.
The problem is we're likely under the liberal regime for a little while, and they're not going to do any of this. They're just going to increase inflation, increase the expansion of the money supply, increase taxes.
It's also
get it bad.
So I also want to be clear that what we've heard here is so Canada was here, okay? So Canada was at this point here, and the Liberals drove Canada over here. Now, what Poilievre is not saying is we're going to bring it back here and maybe take a little more ground. What Poilievre is saying is we're just going to come to here, which means the net gain for progressivism is positive. And the net moving of the Overton window is positive, which means if the only good that Poilievre provides is a veneer of short-term reprieve, but the WWF organization knows that the goal is to keep moving it this way, then his only job is to disarm Canadians into a temporary reprieve, which will really set up an even worse situation down the road. But that's his job. That's his job. That's his part to play in this WWF production that is Canadian politics.
And listen, this does give a huge opportunity, Canada. This, instead of creating this perverse incentive to just double down on statist economic intervention, maybe these tariffs, counterintuitively, let's think outside the 2x4 card that we're allowed to in Canadian politics and say, why not use this as the justification to get government out of Canadians' life? The tariffs are here. Who cares? Because we're going to get rid of the income tax. We're going to get rid of capital gains taxes. We're going to get rid of red tape regulations. We're going to unlock our economy. We're going to get rid of the interprovincial tariffs. We're going to unlock our economy in such a way that we will happily pay the tariffs because all the prices throughout the entire economy are going to come down because we're going to get government out of people's lives. These tariffs wouldn't crush Canadians if the boot wasn't already on the neck of Canadians because of the government. You're not the white knights. Stop it. Get out of our lives. Pierre, have some sense. Have a backbone. Go the melee route. Stop pretending that you have to be liked by the Laurentian elite. Come on, Pierre. Get some sense. Get a backbone. Grow some balls.
We must immediately repeal the Liberal No New Pipelines Law, C-69, a law
that's a good
that
idea.
not only blocks all pipelines but stops mines, refineries, export plants, and all kinds of other
Man, it sounds like the Liberals are doing way better at killing our economy than Trump.
The Americans, a customer we cannot count on anymore. We must greenlight LNG plants that Liberals say there is no business case for, so that we can no longer have to sell our 100% of our LNG, our gas exports to the Americans. We can sell it to Asia and Europe and help break the European dependence on Putin, turning dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. 5, you know what industry Donald Trump does not control in Canada? Home building. It is a homegrown industry. We must get rid of all taxes and red tape to unleash the biggest home building boom this country has ever seen, bigger than the post-war boom when our heroes were coming back from that war. We need to build homes faster than ever, and that means removing the bureaucracy, the red tape, the taxes, and the gatekeepers, and I will make it happen. That will also boost the demand for softwood lumber. The loggers are suffering after Biden hit them with tariffs already. And 6, let's get our provinces together to knock down trade barriers so that we can lower prices and boost wages for our people. 7, we must secure our borders.
But Andrew, so why does it take Donald Trump threatening these things for you guys to do the right things? Right? Like, how would you have ever got there? Right? Because the conservatives are reactionaries and they're not principled and they're not pushing to forward an actual conservative world and life view. Would they have ever got there, Andrew? I've never heard anybody talk about interprovincial tariffs before Trump came out with this tool.
Here's another thing, a question. What happens if eventually, in the short term, Donald Trump decides to drop the tariffs because he's pleased with the result? Does all this go away? Probably. Yeah, my guess would be this is all dependent upon, the tariffs are going to destroy us. But if the threat of tariffs and if the effect of tariffs is gone, all of this, let's fix it up, most of it's probably going to go away. That's my thought. It'll probably go away. It'll be forgotten.
It's true. Because it's not principled. And that's the problem. We have a conservative party that is not a principally conservative party. And that's why we never move the Overton window and move the ball down the field. We need a Javier Milei. We need a Donald Trump, somebody who's going to come in and tear down things. And that's explicitly what Pierre has said he will not do to the level that it is needed. Canada's bureaucracy is horrible.
He didn't say he'll get rid of the capital gains tax. He just said he'll reduce the Liberal hike on the capital gains tax. Yeah. Okay. Just take your foot off the gas just a little bit while the car continues to careen off the cliff.
Why not make some money back on tax arbitrage? There's so much that you can do just getting the government out of people's lives, that their lives would not be destroyed. How much
is Doge so far? Doge has saved $150 billion.
Yeah.
So far. That's pretty good.
Nothing compared to the amounts of spending that they're doing. But our governments are insane. Let's continue.
Rebuild our military to assert our sovereignty and strength in the world. All these things. Axing taxes, building homes, unleashing construction of our resources, fixing the budget, stopping crime. All of these things were conservative fixations before the tariffs. Now they are even more necessary. But none of these things have happened in the last 100.
These were not conservative. Your axe the tax thing, maybe. These were not, by the way, I've come to realize that wasn't even a Poilievreism. Apparently, Jim Karahalios of the New Blue Party, he was the first one to coin the phrase "axe the tax." And Poilievre, I'm not a huge fan of Jim, but Apparently, he's the one to create the phrase, and then Poilievre picked it up.
Give credit where
But
it's
these
due.
were not conservative fixations. What are you talking about? These
No.
were not conservative fixations. No way.
Exactly.
For days since Trump first launched his tariff threats. Look behind me. Parliament has been closed. Liberals shut it down to focus on their political battles. So the job-killing carbon tax is still in place. The sales tax is still in place on new homes. The No New Pipelines law still in place. The massive inflationary debt.
We should probably just talk about that, right? we knew. I did a whole timeline thing just recently for the tariffs. We knew these tariffs were coming before Justin Trudeau. I know it's long ago. It seems like a lifetime ago. Before Justin Trudeau resigned,
We talked about this.
he specifically, for political purposes, put Canada in a position where we were weaker and less able to defend ourselves and do what we need to do as a nation for political purposes and power.
And here's the other thing. Isn't it curious that the Liberal Party is going to create bureaucracies, spend a bunch of money without any parliamentary oversight? Who's going to make this happen? The stroke of the pen and executive order. That's what's going to make this happen. Or, as we'll see on our scheduled episode for this week, how is it that the Liberal government can move ahead with the $4 billion high-speed rail plan? Oh, and also build into the contracts the essential impossibility of future governments reneging on them. How on earth are they able to do this without being able to discuss and debate it in Parliament? So we said that this prorogation is not, in fact, that Parliament does nothing. It just allows the Liberal Party to do everything they can from the executive branch to wave the pen and pass the measures without debate or discussion in Parliament and without any pushback. We knew that this would happen, and sure enough, this is what's going to happen.
Here we are.
It's still in place. Not one law has been changed. Not one tax has been cut. Not one action has been taken to free us from the grip of Trump and the U.S. We need change.
How about the grip of our own
We will get
government?
change. It will be tough.
That's our
Building
biggest enemy.
Canada was tough, and so are Canadians. We will bring home the country we know and love and restore its promise. Canada will be self-reliant, sovereign, and stand on its own 2 feet. We will build on the great legacy and vision of John A. Macdonald of uniting our country east to west.
Pause for a sec.
The reward work.
We will never do that. We will never do that so long as we legalize the murder of preborn babies, legalize the profaning of marriage, legalize the murder of innocent old people via doctor-assisted suicide.
Profane
And
Sabbath.
so long as we encourage people to cut off their bits and claim they're something they're not if they're an adult, we will never reclaim the great legacy of Canada. We will never build on the foundations that have been laid. And if there's one person who's on the screen right now who has committed himself to all of the anti-Christ policies and practices that will prohibit us from rebuilding a strong Canada built on a Christian legacy, it's the devil in the blue dress, Pierre Poilievre. He's standing in the way of that.
Andrew, I'm glad he brought up John A. Macdonald. I'm really glad he brought that up because the entire speech, Poilievre saying, man, things have gone from bad to worse. The lifeblood has been sapped from Canadians, and these tariffs are only making it worse. Well, you know what the very thing that John A. Macdonald said is abortion saps the lifeblood of a nation. It destroys a nation. A great man that you credit with this vision of the founding of Canada, he knew that murdering innocent preborn children would destroy our nation. And you support that, Pierre.
Unleash entrepreneurs, harvest resources, make our own goods, trade with each other.
Including harvesting the organs of preborn babies, which I'm sure Pierre agrees with for the production of all sorts of injections, including the experimental gene therapy injection. So yeah, Pierre is all about harvesting resources, especially when those resources are the little babies that he supports the murder of. So, but he is just as vile as Justin Trudeau in my estimation.
He's vile. I don't know if I would go there, but anyways.
Homes for our youth, rebuild our borders and military, honor our history, and raise our flag. What binds us together
Andrew,
is the
you think
Canadian
we're going to get a
promise
job with the
that anyone
Conservative
from
Party
anywhere
after
can
this?
achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street protected by solid borders and brave troops under a proud flag.
Pause.
To preserve that flag and its
Unless you tell your children who say, Dad, I think I'm a girl, when they're a boy, and you say, no, son, you're a boy, and then they go to jail for 5 years because of Bill C-4, which you supported. Except the safety to do that. The safety to raise your children according to biblical convictions. No, you supported people not being safe from that.
Mm-hmm.
promise. We must work together, fight together, and win together. That is what it means to put Canada first, because Canada is worth fighting for our people, for our land, for our home, for our country. The president says that he doesn't like me. He doesn't think that I'm a MAGA guy. I am not. It is true that I am Canada first.
If you want to be a
MAGA
person,
I'm fighting for the
mega.ca,
this country.
GA.ca. Get your hats.
Foreign leaders, including the American president, I'm fine
Look
with
at that
because
hat.
I have
Look at
one
this
job
hat.
to do, and it's to fight for this country. And let me be also clear: we will
Pause for a
never
sec.
be the 51st.
It's funny that he'll say, my job is to fight for the people of this country and do whatever I need to do that's best for my country. And yet when Donald Trump attempts to do that, he's a terrible man for it. Which one is it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is a leader of a free nation not allowed to make whatever decisions they want? I mean, like, putting tariffs on Canadian goods, we don't have to sell anything to them. He's not putting a gun to our head.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to play ball, we have to play ball on their terms. But here is Donald Trump saying, my job is to do what's best for the American people. My job is to do what's best for the United States. And as he's doing that, you're criticizing him, saying, but it's bad for Canada. But Pierre, Canada's not his responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's the responsibility of our elected officials who have dropped that ball. So you can't say, I'm going to do my job and then criticize another world leader for doing the same job. It just so happens that we're in this mess because of our inept and evil civil government. Can't have it both ways.
We will be self-reliant, sovereign, and stand on our own feet. We will be an independent and a sovereign country, and I will always stand up for our flag and our people.
It would have been sick if he had shotgun the beer. I would have. He could have redeemed. He could have redeemed the presser if he actually had shotgun the beer.
If he then gave the camera guy a stunner. So
yeah. Oh man.
So
last
but not least, if you
Okay.
can smell
Andrew,
what
we're
the
going
commie is
to.
cooking.
I know this is our shortest clip, but we might have to end it quick. But I mean, let's see what Juggers,
Let's
old
smell,
Juggers.
smell what the commie's cooking. Here we go.
If you smell what
The
rock
commies
is cooking.
cooking. And I forgot how prominent that like little pad is.
Pause for a sec. Pause for a sec. He should totally take off his turban and throw it like the Rock did his elbow pad. That would be amazing.
we should have spliced in the Mike Myers elbow up video there, but whatever.
That's good stuff. All
We
right,
only
let's
have
go.
so much time.
Here we go. Buckle up.
Canadians woke up
Oh,
today to
we're
a
not
trade
listening
war.
to the full 12 minutes.
This is
of
not something that we
Juggers.
wanted. It is unwarranted. It is
Okay, we've already established it's not unwarranted. Stop it.
I know. We have to
wrong,
listen though,
it's
because you got to
illegal.
hear his language. You got to hear. We got to go
we're
through it
gonna
now. We
fight
have to.
back. And
Can I
Canadians are already
change the
showing that
playback
defiance.
speed?
They're standing up for one another. They're showing that they want to buy Canadian. They're boycotting American. And this is going to be a difficult time. So I'm calling on, in this time where workers are telling me that they are desperately worried if they are going to lose their jobs. We already have seen massive job losses in the steel sector as a result of the steel and aluminum tariffs. And now we're going to see across the board job losses. The impact of this is probably the worst economic attack on our country that we have experienced in our lifetime. And the repercussions can be devastating.
Wow.
People continually tell me, they literally don't know if I
Be
will be able to
afraid,
go into my next
Canada.
shift, if I'm going to be laid off. There are auto workers talking about when there's pauses on the auto line, which normally happen, some of the workers are wondering, does this pause mean that we're shut down and we're going to go home and we lose our jobs? And what does that mean for a person? And they lose their job when you're living paycheck to paycheck. That means you could lose your home, not be able to put food on the table for your family, not be able to make your rent, not make your other bills. This is serious. Given the gravity of what break.
You'd
quick.
imagine that they might take seriously, like, how much is the average Canadian pay in taxes? It's like upwards of 40 to 50%, right? What happens if you responded not by blowing massive amounts of money into the economy, but by getting the government's boots off our neck?
Yeah. Two quick things. One, when you also tell people that their work is not essential and they have to stay home and be laid off and they can't support for their family, that creates all the same problems, which you, Jagmeet Singh, supported. Second of all, I'm pretty certain that somewhere on his body, his suit, his tie, his ring, his shoes, his jewelry, his vehicle, probably manufactured, has to do with American goods, an American company. So I doubt he's going to boycott everything. Keep going.
Yeah.
I'm calling on an emergency session of Parliament like we had in the pandemic. What we're witnessing could be worse.
Pause. There it is.
He's got his pension.
There it is.
Let's get the
emergency.
Yeah.
Like the pandemic. Emergency like the pandemic.
That's the language that you want to highlight for sure.
My spidey sense is tingling.
Of course. This is right out of the Great Reset by Klaus Schwab. Just a different precipitating event
In the pandemic, and very likely will be worse. But
it'll
Canadians
be
are ready
worse,
to fight
Pat.
back.
Whoa, it's going to be worse than the pandemic.
Worse than the pandemic. Yeah, worse than climate change too.
So my promise is we should fight back as well as elected officials. So an emergency session of Parliament where we do three things. One is we need...
You wouldn't need an emergency session of Parliament if Parliament wasn't prorogued for the Liberal Party to
Where's
find
your vote? Where's
a
your vote
leader.
of no confidence?
Yes.
Juggers, where's it?
You had the opportunity to do it and refused at every point. You stupid,
By the way,
stupid man.
He got his pension 5 days ago.
Yeah.
So
Now
the vote of no
Parliament can go
confidence.
back.
Yeah. Now the vote of
He's
no
not so
confidence
worried.
could have been passed. So what's he waiting for?
Yeah.
to put in place supports for workers. Workers are already impacted. We need immediate supports. I'm calling on EI to be immediately reformed. So
Spending more money.
Covering enough
There it is.
workers. It's a sufficient amount to cover people's bills, and it's quick. People can get it quick enough so that it can actually
Pause for a
come in
sec.
and support them.
So it's okay if you don't work. Big Daddy government will take care of you, which they said during COVID as well. Same play.
And ruin our economy.
Yep.
This is going to lead to inflation, massive inflation.
Secondly, we need to create good jobs in Canada. And so that build Canadian, buy Canadian plan at the federal level needs to be there so we can build more and create good jobs in this difficult time. And finally, I know while the Parliament doesn't need to be recalled to put in place the retaliatory tariffs, I believe we should send a united message as all leaders and all parties that we stand united together, opposed to these tariffs, and we're going to impose these retaliatory tariffs with a unified voice, denouncing Donald Trump's attack on our country.
Won't call
With that,
Parliament
I'm ready
back.
for any questions.
Can you just elaborate more on what type of measures you'd like to see in support of workers or businesses? Are you looking for pandemic-style relief?
We are in what could be worse than the pandemic in terms of the impacts to our economy and to workers.
We're doomed,
So
Andrew.
we need across-the-board supports for workers impacted.
We're from the government. We're here to help. Run!
This is worse.
reaction
Worse than
now
the
is we
pandemic.
need EI
Worse.
that is actually up
Everything's
to the task.
worse than the
we've been
last
calling
thing,
for reforms
which
for a while
justifies
now.
more
I want that to be
government.
put in place. EI, that is quicker to access.
Okay. Does he add anything of value in the next 10 minutes that we haven't already seen? Because I don't want to listen to him for 10 minutes.
Just keep going. Keep going. Hold on. We'll get there. We'll get there.
That is the sufficient amount so you can actually pay your bills. The current replacement fee or the replacement salary is not enough to cover the cost for many families. So we need
It's not a living wage. We don't have the UBI.
You want to vote down the government at your earliest opportunity.
Here we go.
Do you
Listen to
still
this.
stand by that statement, and do you think now is the time for an election?
Now is the time to put workers first. We're literally in a trade war.
There it is.
And I can't imagine any opposition leader that
you
wouldn't want to
spineless
support
coward.
a package to help workers impacted by this.
It's because he is in the Liberal Party and the NDP Party are both communist Marxist parties. So why would he want to recall the party that allows him to continue to forward their crazy progressive plans?
Point blank.
We did
It's
that
now
during
the
the
time.
pandemic. We came together.
No.
We need to have that same approach now. So my answer to that is we need supports of workers first. Put
The
in
answer
place.
is no. We're not going to do it. That's the answer.
My answer to that is completely answering a question you didn't answer or you didn't ask. So there you have it. There you have it, reporter. I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to answer another question that I want to answer.
In place, working, and an election afterwards.
What a dick.
I mean, how long would you see something like that? This tariff war could go on for 4 years. So how long would these measures that you're suggesting go on for? And how are we paying for it?
So the employment insurance should be permanent changes to the employment insurance.
There you go. Permanent. So it's a justification to change EI forever. So
And
it's
really,
not provisional.
and
It's
right.
It's
And
just
it's also
increasing
the
welfare
justification to eventually turn EI into UBI.
For
Yep,
workers
there
when
we
they're
go.
impacted. That is something that we've long needed, and so now I'm saying I want that fix in place now, immediately done, so that workers can count on it, so it's there for them. And then the measures in terms of the economic stimulus, we need it immediately. We need a short-term fix. And
course.
as we move towards building a more resilient economy, we can look at ways to adjust it. But there's no
Adjust,
doubt,
not
with the
eliminate,
current
adjust.
circumstances, our reliance and dependence on the United States and the trade war that we find ourselves in, we need to build Canadian by
Everyone's
Canadian. and
they're all
that
saying the
is
same
something
thing.
that's gonna be
Trade war,
short-term,
trade
but
war,
I
trade
expect
war.
it to be a long-term permanent shift where we use the buying power we have
Long-term-
to invest in our country.
Long-term permanent shift.
Parliament to return for the EI reforms. Does that require
Same thing.
legislation, or isn't that
Okay,
not something
right?
that the government can do without
Right?
Parliament?
Government's got to come back, right?
We saw in the pandemic that we understood the severity of the situation required us to come together to pass legislation to be able to support Canadians.
Yep.
This is worse than the pandemic.
Oh,
The potential.
Whoa. He's not even saying it might be anymore.
No,
This
it's
is
worse.
worse.
yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Ramifications
Point blank
of this
question.
trade war
Doesn't
could
Parliament have to be in
devastating impacts
session
on our
to
economy,
fix
worse than
this?
what we saw during that period of time.
No, we'll
No,
figure
because
it
it's an
So
emergency.
We absolutely
Yeah.
need to have the ability to come back to Parliament to get things done. And what I'm saying is I want
Uh-huh.
supports of workers done first.
First,
An election
right.
is secondary to that. So
Ah.
first, let's get the support in place for those workers. Let's make sure they get the help that they need. People are already losing their jobs, and then we can worry about an election after that.
Can I ask a question? Why is there no media scrum like this after Trudeau? Like he finishes and he walks. Like, at least Juggers
There were with Trudeau, but his initial thing was so long. I wanted to get his scripted part out because
Yeah.
the Trudeau thing was like 40 minutes, so I didn't want the whole thing. But he had a quick interview, but the questions are very telling because they're saying, "Okay, so you're going to still vote on no confidence?" Non-answer. Don't we need Parliament back in session? Oh, we do, but let's
Not
be
really.
more socialist first, and then we'll do our job.
Yeah.
That's basically what he's saying. I'll do my job when you give me more money first.
Or if it would require legislation, receive royal
Same thing.
assent
Don't we
before
need-
you'd be comfortable
right?
going to an election. Obviously,
We can just-
if there was legislation towards that, it would die on the order paper once an election was called. So is that what you're saying? You'd need to see it become law or pass through the Senate and return back?
Yeah, I don't want just a lip service. I want protections in place for workers, passed and implemented, helping out people. We literally have a dire situation.
We literally have a dire situation. So now let's do the things that I've always wanted to do regardless.
25% tariffs on our country will mean potentially hundreds and thousands of workers lose their jobs.
Pause for a sec.
So
There's an interesting little cycle the squirrel cage run of it all. So he's saying, here's a problem, and in order to fix the problem, we need to implement change. But in order to implement the change, I need to see the right legislation. But in order to see the right legislation, Parliament needs to be back in session. But I'm not going to okay Parliament back in session until we see the change. But we're not going to see the change until we have the right legislation. But we're not going to see the legislation until Parliament's in session. But I'm not going to vote to bring Parliament back. You see the cycle here?
Yeah.
He's basically saying, no, we're not going to fix the problem.
Yeah,
which keeps going on forever.
He wants guarantees of a massive expansion of the welfare state, according to, as in his own words, his desires before the tariffs, before he's even willing for Parliament to resume their normal, ordinary
Parliament
democratic
to pass. You need Parliament to pass it. But how's Parliament going to pass it if they're not in session?
He wants it to be done outside of the normal democratic process because he wants communism, because he's an ass. I'm sorry, but it's true.
Canadians listening, my commitment to you is I promise I'm going to fight to protect your jobs. I promise I'm going to fight to make sure workers impacted get help. And I promise that I'm going to put in place supports that I can do so that people who are worried about the cost of living that's already so high going up, I'm going to fight to make sure life is more affordable.
Do you agree that President Trump is trying to cripple the economy of Canada so that he can annex us? And was there anything that the government could or should have done in the last 30 days to avoid this?
In my opinion, there is nothing to appease Donald Trump that would have stopped this. He has made up his mind. He wanted to attack our country economically. The whole pretense of the border turned out to be not true at all. And he repeated himself again and again. He has said he wants us to be the 51st state. He said he would use economic pressure to achieve that. He is imposing completely unjustified, unwarranted, and illegal tariffs on our country. He is doing...
No, none of that's true.
Exactly as he said. So we have to take him at his word, and we have to fight back. And Canadians are already doing that. But it should be our job as elected officials to back up Canadians who are showing that resilience and that defiance by saying, yeah, we're going to be there for you as well. We're going to put in place a package of supports for workers, so we have your back if you are impacted by these tariffs. We're going to build more and buy more Canadian to build up an economy that creates jobs for Canadians. And we're going to have a unified voice to say we denounce what Donald Trump did, and we are together in fighting back with tariffs that...
Notice how none of his plan is cutting
Have you or anyone in your camp have had any conversations at all with government officials or the leadership contenders for the Liberal Party about this relief package, about any progress regarding that?
No.
Could that support for workers mean tax cuts? That's what Poilievre is suggesting, that the support would be in the form of income tax cuts or something of that sort.
Well, no, let's be really clear. He's been very clear about the tax cuts that he wants. He has announced... Not at all. I reject. He wants tax cuts for millionaires.
Right.
At a time when workers are going to lose their jobs.
Right.
It's a ridiculous approach. He wants to put tax...
You know what a total erasure of the income tax would do? It would erase income tax on
By the way,
everybody who pays it.
Also, if
the
only person's taxes you cut are the millionaire business owners, you know what that means for the millionaire business owners? They're able to increase wages and pay their employees more. That would be a good thing.
Yeah, and maybe they wouldn't have to move their businesses to the United States of America to be competitive.
Cuts are going to help less than 1% of the population. I think it's
no, it's not.
Total
Come
lie.
on.
Total
Come
lie.
on.
Yeah, total lie.
Statistics.
Come
Total
on.
lie.
We need a unified voice. Except I'm going to just fall back on my just total lies that like my knee-jerk gut reaction lies about conservatives and tax cutting.
Average income of the people that are benefited from the tax cuts that he's proposing earn mostly $1.4 million or more. So no, that's a ridiculous. That's the capital gains tax cut that he wants to propose. That's what he's come out.
Why wouldn't you get rid of the capital gains tax?
Yeah, I know people who do not make $1.4 million a year who will suffer tremendously because of the capital gains tax. So he's a liar. He's a complete liar.
Can we just be honest about capital gains? We talked about it with Jonathan. Capital gains taxes are somebody making an entrepreneurial calculation in the market, and then the government stealing their money for them having success in doing so.
Yeah,
that's
the government can't allow people to make more money than the government wants them to, so they have to take some of it.
So they have
the
to
government is like
redistribute
the government's like the bully who says, "Oh, that's quite a nice lunch you have there. You have 2 snack packs. I think I have to take one of them."
And I'll smush half of it and then like give like a crumb to like 29,000 different people.
That's a specific tax cut that he's talked about that helps a very, very, very small percentage
Andrew,
of Canadians that earn
yes, we have to. This is
over
important.
$1.4 million.
We have to see the third head of the
in the face
chimera in our federal government.
We got steel workers in Sault Ste. Marie saying, I'm going to lose my job. We got auto workers in Windsor, auto workers in Oshawa, who every time their line shuts down, they think, that's it, I'm going to go back home. We got workers now across the boards that are wondering, what am I going to do to put food on the table? How am I going to keep my home? And Pierre Poilievre proposes a tax cut for millionaires. I mean, it's very on brand for Pierre Poilievre, but it's not what Canadians need right now.
Two middle-class families or people making less, would that be something you'd be willing to negotiate on to get this passed with the Conservatives?
Great question.
He's talking about tax cuts when people are losing their jobs. There's not a job if you cut someone's taxes.
He's literally saying, I want to be a unified voice. So the guy asks him a question. Well, could you unite behind getting rid of taxes on middle-class people? And he says,
people less than.
No.
Yeah. Then he says this. So again, Poilievre's only talking about tax cuts for the rich. That's so silly. Okay, what about tax cuts for everyone? And then he basically says, who cares about tax cuts if you don't have a job? Hello, the jobs don't exist because the taxes are so high on the business owners.
They have no income. What's the point? I'm talking about getting people the protection in place that they need so they can actually survive. We're talking about survival. And Pierre Poilievre's talking about giving rich people a little bit of a benefit. What's the point of that? I'm talking about
we listened
workers
to his whole thing and he
go back
never
to
said
work
that.
because these tariffs mean their job will not be there. Those workers are right now high and dry. There's nothing in place for them. There's no adequate. 60% of workers are not covered by EI. The government has not fixed that. We need to fix that now. And I'm calling on
that's what's going to help us during the trade wars.
Emergency.
A welfare
Let's recall Parliament and put in place the support that people need. We did that during the pandemic. This is potentially worse than that. So let's get to work.
I thought he said it was worse than it. Why are you backpedaling, Jagmeet?
No, it was worse. It was worse in the pandemic, so it was an emergency. So we need the emergency act.
On what basis do you say this is worse than the pandemic? Because
Great
a lot
question.
of economists would caution against that, saying at the moment we don't need emergency measures of that scale, which would lead to a larger debt and deficit.
Well, that's why I'm calling for EI measures to be improved, not the direct payments that we saw during the pandemic. But the scope and scale of the 25%
he has one plan.
On our
Pause it for a sec.
He has one plan that he wanted to do before the tariffs were on the table.
We're not gonna show up at your front door and give you an envelope of $2,000. We're gonna come around the back door and leave the envelope in your mailbox. It's totally different. It's a totally different thing. Is what we're not saying we're going to give you the money to your face. We're going to put the money in your mailbox at the back door. Same amount of money, and it's from us. But it's totally different. It's a different
Andrew,
door.
We have 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Please, let's get through this.
Let's go.
When the majority of what we produce, the majority of what we sell goes to the United States, and all of that potentially being shut down because it costs too much, it'd
be a shame if they put tariffs on all that.
Far more than the pandemic. There are items that we produce in terms of steel and aluminum. If the tariffs are stacked, as we know is potentially going to happen, it could mean that our entire industry gets shut down. The automotive sector, these are good paying jobs. All of those jobs would be lost. The impact is devastating. And it could be, that's why I'm highlighting that, worse than what we saw during the pandemic.
You did say it was worse like a couple times in the speech.
We've got to be ready for people.
Trump's reaction today to Canada's announcement that we would be putting in place retaliatory tariffs was to say that if we retaliate, he will add reciprocal tariffs on top of the retaliations and on top of what he has already done. At what point do we stop escalating?
We have to fight to win.
There's
no other way to someone like Donald Trump.
We're never going to win this fight.
Continue to use bullying tactics. So we have to fight back. I think it's really important to remind folks this is not a fight that we wanted. This is not a war that Canadians wanted. This is a trade war that's going to hurt Americans.
We can't win.
It's going to mean that their cost of living goes up. It's going to hurt Canadians. It's going to hurt workers. It is bad. But the only way out of this is to fight back and to stay strong. So we
Pause
have to
for
fight back.
Just one quick comment. Even if Trump is the bully, when the bully is 6'4" and 240 pounds of solid muscle, and he's trained in judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu,
and we're an emaciated peasant.
You're 4'2", and you walk on crutches, it may not be the best play to puff your chest out against the bully. Maybe not the best play. Maybe
strong. And we also need to look for the future where we are less reliant on the United States. And that's why I've talked about the Buy Canadian, Build Canadian, changing the way we buy things so we use our federal dollars towards Canadian-made products, using Canadian content. We've got to really reshape our economy so that we're more resilient and look to other trade partners. But what we're up against right now is serious.
That sounds nationalistic.
To Canadians
are these guys nationalists, Andrew?
All of a sudden they are.
Thank you so much.
Oh, man. That's like the biggest redemption right there when we get to the theme songs.
Yeah. That right there is Jagmeet Singh delivering the people's elbow to the heart of Canada to destroy us once and for all.
Andrew, we don't get paid money to do this, and I don't know if there's enough money in the world that could pay me to do this type of content, but we do it because it's important. Mm-hmm. And man, is it painful to listen to those idiots?
We need our audience. We need Canadians to do a few things. One, we got to cut through the euphemisms.
Yes,
because all this double speak and all this ministry of truth type speak that we need to clarify so people understand. And we also need to show you that in essence, what you just saw were the three heads of the single chimera that is the state in Canada. And they might come at it from a different angle. They might emphasize different things. One might appear to be a little more conservative and measured than the other, and one appears to be a total nut job. Mm-hmm. But let's be clear. You heard the same thing come from all three of them, which is Trump is a bully and arbitrarily doing this because he only cares about the United States.
There's no justification.
There's no justification for what he's doing. Okay?
Yeah.
There's no justification for this. We need to fight back with our own tariffs. We all need to work together. We're in this together. And whatever it takes. Okay, well, buckle up, Canada.
We're from the government. We're here to help. The scariest words in the English language. Mm-hmm. It's time that we, as a nation, run to the hills for the Lord. For it's for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Until next time, everybody, God bless you.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us and all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com. Oh.